The South African government recently proposed a constitutional amendment to take the land of white farmers in South Africa without compensation. I'm going to break that situation down for you and provide a way forward for Americans who are interested in this issue. Listening to the Charles Carroll Society. I am your host, the self-appointed bard of the American Readout. If this is your first time finding us, thank you very much for stopping by. I provide political commentary and basically document our journey, my family's journey from very poor and humble beginnings through suburbia into a more self-sufficient rural lifestyle deep in the inner mountain west, the Rocky Mountains, a area that we like to refer to as the American Readout. But even after that, all these people, majority black people who vote for the ANC constantly, are still in terrible straits. They are in absolute poverty. The ANC is a socialist or democratic socialist. They're kind of like communist light party. They've been losing power, and they are actually facing, for the first time in the history, not being the majority party in parliament. Younger, more aggressive, more assertive, more communist parties have been breaking off from the ANC and demanding a faster and quicker, basically carving up and nationalization of the country. The youth leader of the ANC, who was very aggressive, very assertive, but was very popular among the young people. Basically, the ANC said, stop being so aggressive, and inside their party system kind of suspended him for a number of years. He took the suspension not well, I guess, and he created his own party called the Economic Freedom Fighters, and they have been growing in power. This is a hard Marxist party. This guy has gone over to Zimbabwe and said they have done great things by killing the whites in Zimbabwe. He's the one that everybody's complaining about. He's like, I'm not calling for the slaughter of whites in South Africa yet. So this guy's extremely aggressive. The last ANC president, who was named Zuma, who was also caught with massive corruption, got kicked out of office. And the guy who came in needs to promise something to the ANC. 80% of its voters are absolutely below the level of poverty. I'm just living in abject poverty. And of course, it's easy always what fascist and communist governments say. They point the finger. It's the blacks. Normally in the northern hemisphere, it's the blacks, it's the Jews, it's the rich people. In South Africa, they have a nice, easy way. It's the rich white people. And so, because he's losing so much support to the more hardline, far left party, the EFF, the ANC's new president said, we'll cooperate on what they call expropriation without compensation. Expropriation, basically racist land theft. They're going to take white farmers' lands and not pay them. And they claim that land was stolen. We'll get into that in a minute. They're talking about evicting whites who've held that land for almost like 8 generations. I find that very interesting, since our own alt-right communities, if you listen to them and talk to them and ask them questions, they actually suggest that they're going to racially cleanse America of people who've been here 8 generations or more. So it's like the South Africans, militant socialists, their National Socialist Party, are enacting policies that are advocated for by our own American National Socialist parties. We're going to racially cleanse the country. Currently, 72% of the farmland is owned by white farmers, and about 28% obviously is owned by black farmers, which is actually pretty impressive, because since 20 years ago, when apartheid, is it 20 years ago, maybe 30, 1990, 20 years ago, when apartheid ended, that's an increase of almost 10% of the farmland that has been actually moved from white farmers to blacks. And how did they do that? The government bought it. The government came here and said, you know what? The truth is that there were policies put into place that I have found that prevented blacks from, that's the only moral argument that that ANC, the ruling government, has, right? So I went and dug up that there was laws put into place by the white Europeans, even before apartheid, that restricted the native population from owning land. Specifically, under the rule of the European colonists, South Africa's Native Land Act of 1913 stripped most black people of their right to own property, which they had previously. A policy reinforced decades later by the National Party and its system of apartheid, or apartness, i.e. American Jim Crowness. A government land audit released in February showed that farmers and agricultural holdings comprised 97% of the 121.9 million hectare-acres of the nation lands, and that whites owned 72% of the 37 million hectare-acres held by individuals. This tallies with the results of a separate audit released on November 1st by the Agriculture Development Solutions and the Farm Lobby Group, the Ag SA, which found that non-whites own about 27% of the national farmland, compared to only 14% in 1994 when apartheid ended. So, one of the things that you're not getting from my fellows on the new right, what you should be, is a complete story. There were despicable policies put into place in the past that stripped the native black population from owning land. Okay, 1913. So, and the government under the ANC has been moving farmland from whites to blacks. How? By buying it. When a white farmer wants to put his land up for sale, the government says, let me buy it. They come in there with money, they buy it, and then they go and sell it to a black farmer. From our perspective, not the best. This is not the best solution, but from their perspective, it's a fair thing, right? The guy wants to sell his land, the government buys his land, and then they sell the land to a group of black farmers who can take it over. Now, one of the problems I found when I was looking through that is that a lot of the land that was has been transferred from whites to black lay fallow, i.e. unproductive. So it's like, these guys take the land and then I don't know what they either take the money or they don't use the land, and this is going to cause a big problem because I think South Africa is over 50 million people. So if you're taking productive land from white farmers, giving it to non-productive people, that seems that there is an issue there. Then people are going to start starving. So that's one concept. So why is the ANC doing this now? Because they're losing political power to more far left groups. And these far left groups are pushing hard about taking land. You know, the socialists. I mean, communists, they're doing the communist thing. And the ANC has been playing footsie with communists and fellow travelers and type things for a long time. But they haven't gone all the way, and they're seeing their power erode because they're corrupt and they're making money for their members and their elite, and they're living the high life while still the 80% of the people who were poor under apartheid are desperately poor. I'm talking like no welfare, like no running water, living in just squalor, while the ANC lives in multi-million-dollar homes in South Africa. And so they need to point the finger at someone, and, you know, it was the Jews before, and now it's whites now. The EFF, this Economic Freedom Foundation, which is a hard left, far right, radical communist party, and the African National Congress, the ruling party, cooperate, they can rewrite the Constitution. I think it only takes 2/3 of their parliament to do it, and they have it between them and a couple other small parties. If that happens, I have no idea what the white farmers will do. I believe that the white farmers have three choices: fight and win, flee and be poor, or die. That's it. And that's the same thing that we've got to learn, because taking of property, taking of land is straight out of the communist. I mean, every communist everywhere in the world does this. So I think it would be very not wise for us to assume that it can never happen here. So the first thing to understand is it can happen there. Maybe it most likely will happen there. So the first thing is to call for President Trump. The United States government gives hundreds of millions of dollars to the ANC, to the South African government for development. All of that should be should be stopped immediately. If they change their constitution to create a potential genocide of their own racial minority, it's almost the reverse. Like apartheid, we opposed it because the minority was treating the majority inhumanely. We have to have consistency in that if the majority in the South Africa are now treating the minority inhumanely, that those benefits, hundreds of millions, got to go immediately. And by the way, I also think that the South African government, the defense forces, gain some benefit, and that all has looked at. Make sure that nothing in America is benefiting a hard Marxist communist country government. Got to go. So that's a very consistent. He can use that consistent approach now. Those who are minorities in South Africa should have the ability to come here, which would be the white, any of them actually. And for those who want to even take more action, you guys, I'll leave a link here in my description where you can actually go over there and provide these people direct money who are trying to raise funds for what they call is non-lethal aids to try to get their people out of there. So, and socialism and where it leads. It was James Rawls that said it to me, who said, you really need to pick your neighbors well. Right now, the white South Africans are spread across all of South Africa, and they have no kind of bastion where they're the majority. And so they are dang near nearly indefensible and getting picked off through this horrible crime. Communism and socialism is a terrible system that leads to a lot of dead. I think it's over 100 million people are dead at the hands of socialist and communist governments in the 20th century. Yet there are professors who still teach their kids that this is the way to win. And they, of course, are extremely wrong. This could easily happen here. There are Mexicans who are demanding that we give back the land that we took in Mexico for only 200 years ago, very similar to the Africans, the black Africans. That would be the Southwest, all of California, New Mexico, Nevada, that type of the country. And of course, the Native Americans are always being like, I wish I could find some video of everybody going, hey, we acknowledge that this land was stolen from the Native Americans. But, well, why are you doing that? Are you going to do anything about that? So the Native Americans can claim the whole of the United States. So what you're seeing in South Africa could be the pattern that they use to do this elsewhere. We should understand this, and you should see this, and we should plan for this. We should do our best to help others, and I've given you concrete examples of things that we can do. And we should continue to try to do and plan for this happening in our own nation. If you want liberty and Christianity and Western culture to survive, you are personally responsible. You personally. My voice is tiny, so hit that subscribe button, by the way. My voice is tiny, so if you're seeing this, as they say, you are the revolution. You are personally responsible for finding some way every week to demonstrate your non-compliance with this post-Christian nation. Do some act of rebellion. Do some act of non-compliance with this system every day. And it doesn't matter, examples are, go do a farmer's market. People don't realize that that's not using consumerism. Go take a look at barter. Help out your neighbor. Do something that shows that you're just not a drone dead person. And I think find your way. Please help out. And like I said, if you enjoyed this and like citizen journalism, please share this among your like-minded friends. Subscribe to the podcast or subscribe to the show and hit that like button. Viva Cristo Rey, Viva Cristo Rey, Viva Cristo Rey y the Virgin of Guadalupe.